have a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tokimaru, and I am here to have a look at Baki Hanma Blood Arena. If you know me, you may know that I'm a huge fan of Punch-Out! One of my favorite games of all time is Punch-Out! For the Nintendo Wii. It's phenomenal. One of my favorite things in all of gaming. And I've been starving for a new Punch-Out! Game. So when I noticed during Steam Next Fest that there's a Baki-themed Punch-Out! Type game, I was extremely excited. I became a fan of Baki earlier this year, so this was a huge release for me. I know it's not the type of thing to get on most people's radars because I think in the anime community, there's usually this expectation that if there is a fighting themed anime, that if it gets a video game, it should be like either a 2D side scroller fighting game or like a 3D battle arena type fighting game. However, I am the one person that's most excited for any new Punch-Out! Games coming out. So this has been on my radar for a while. And now that it's released, there's a lot to say about it. There's a lot to say about it. First of all, the main intended control scheme for this game is with the controller. That leads to a few problems. Number one, in the main menu, you actually can't select anything with the mouse. If you're going to make a PC game or a PC port of the game, one of the bare minimum things you could do is make the main menu controllable with a mouse. I don't see why that has to be a problem. Number two, let's jump into the options menu because that's something I like to do. This options menu is absolutely abysmal. There's literally nothing here. We have some language controls, which is okay. Control type, you have control type 1, control type 2. That's about it. And it's the same for mouse and keyboard. You have control type 1, control type 2, that's about it. No rebindable controls to be seen, not even mouse and keyboard. Not even rebindable controls for mouse and keyboard. Number two, the music in SFX, it's on and off. It's on or off. There's no way to modulate any of the sounds. They don't even have ticker boxes. Devs, please, I am begging you. You need to have actual volume sliders for your games. You cannot just have music on or off. This game is extremely loud. This game is extremely loud. I've had to do so much adjusting on my end for recording. There needs to be slider bars. Why in 2025 can you not adjust the volume of the game? You can only turn it off or on. That's another thing that tells me that this was primarily developed for consoles and not for PC. And then we also have no other options. Like, there's so many other options that they could have here. And so first and foremost, this is a 2D game, so it's not gonna have that many graphics options. But there should be things like this whole game has this sort of weird CRT static chromatic let me try that again. Chromatic aberration filter on it that you can't turn off. So number one, that's points off for no accessibility. Also remappable controls is an accessibility issue. That should also be here. There's just so much they could have on here. There's no resolutions options, no windowed mode, no full screen, nothing. There's just nothing. There's nothing here. And the options that are here are so sparse they're almost next to useless. Absolutely abysmal. There's no way you should be getting away with an option menu that sparse. But the game. You may want to hear about the game. Maybe the options menu isn't that important. Maybe you're gonna get this on console, and for the most part, those options don't really matter. Maybe you like the game. So this is a Punch-Out! Type game. I believe there are about 12 or 13 different characters in this game. and they both have an easy mode or hard mode. There's Beast and Demon, and that doesn't really tell you whether or not those are difficulties, you just kind of have to assume. And from what I can tell, they don't change up the movesets or designs or anything. The only difference between Beast and Demon difficulty is the amount of downs you can take, which means you just die faster, that's about it. As far as I can tell, that's the only difference. So you may notice something strange about this. Now, this wasn't really an issue for me when I played Punch-Out Wii, but because the story in that game is pretty simple. All the characters are really simple. For the most part, they're exaggerated parodies. Baki Hanma is an anime with one long overarching story and several arcs in between where the fights go. This tells you basically nothing about the story. It tells you nothing about the characters. You'll see in a second that characters get like 3 or 4 dialogue boxes, and that's about it. That's their entire story. They don't tell you about their personality. They don't tell you who they are. They don't tell you how they fight. The actual story part, like the little preamble with narration that you got a few seconds ago, they're just screenshots from the anime. So they didn't even create any interesting visuals for that portion of it. They have voice acting. They have voice acting in this game for just like the narrator, who occasionally pops in sometimes. At the very beginning of the game, when we loaded up the game, he said Baki Hanma Blood Arena, and that's about it. Occasionally, the quote-unquote narrator interjects, but they didn't get the narrator to narrate any of the actual storylines. So that's one of the big problems I have with this game, is it doesn't really tell you anything about the story, anything about the characters. You get like almost no information. So unless you're already a Baki fan, and I imagine Baki fans also have a problem with this. If you're not already a Baki fan, this game tells you nothing about who Baki is, what is happening, what his motivations are, who any of these characters are. And again, like I said, I didn't really have a problem with that for Punch-Out. Most Punch-Out games basically don't have any story at all. However, because this is a licensed IP based off of an anime, if they don't tell you anything about the anime, there's almost not even any point in licensing the IP. It's really... This game, during a lot of points, this game does nothing in places where they should be doing a lot more. Basically, I think in this game, the gameplay is basically doing all the heavy lifting. So you see, we have a couple text boxes describing that this guy does Orochi karate. That's about it. That's it. That's basically all of his lines. Fight. So, I have actually beaten this game. I've gone all the way to the final boss and beaten him, and I'll describe something that kind of annoyed me about the final boss later. But for now, I wanted to restart this game to show you the tutorial, because as far as I know, once you beat the tutorial, you can't redo the actual tutorial section of this fight. So this is the tutorial. We have press X or A to throw a low attack. So much like Punch-Out, you can do body shots and you can do high shots with your left and right fist. You can duck, you can block, and you can dodge, and that's basically the whole thing. And something that I didn't realize until like halfway through my playthrough is most people, I think a lot of people think about Punch-Out in terms of the NES game and the Wii game, which are very simplified compared to all the other versions of Punch-Out, such as the arcade versions and Super Punch-Out. And I realized halfway through the game that this game is actually primarily based on Super Punch-Out. So a lot of confusing mechanics in this game, I had trouble picking up on until I realized the type of game this was supposed to play as, and that helped me a lot. But I think that, like I sort of said earlier, part of the problem with this game is if you're not a Baki fan, then the story and the characters and everything is hard to pick up on because they don't give you anything. And if you're not already, on the flip side, if you're not already a Punch-Out fan, the mechanics and play style overall is very hard to get into. And this was sort of a problem with Punch-Out for the Wii, is that they didn't really give you a proper tutorial. They taught you through the mechanics of the fights, but they don't really give you a proper tutorial on anything, which this game, at bare minimum, it gives you a tutorial, which I do still have a problem with. And they don't teach you about how you should expect fights to go. So a lot of the time when I see people playing Punch-Out for the first time, they're just spamming punches left and right. And because you can sort of do that on the first couple of characters, and it's the same with this game, you can sort of spam punches over and over again until you win, until you get to a certain point where they expect you to understand how fights go. And especially in this game, there's one specific mechanic that they expect you to learn that they don't teach you, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But I think that this game feels at times difficult for you to get into if you're not a Punch-Out fan, and at other times it feels difficult for you to get into if you're not a Baki fan. So the only type of person that this game appeals to is exactly me and maybe 10 other people who are both Baki and Punch-Out fans. So here we learn we can do low attacks. We can do left and right low attacks. See, those hit his stomach, and then we can do left and right high attacks. The controls in this game are a little bit different from Punch-Out. We can do left and right high attacks to his face. We can dodge left and right. Whoops. Okay. My bad. And we can go duck for high attacks. So a problem with this game that you'll see eventually, not so much with this fight, because I think they do a good job showing you what his attacks are going to be. But another problem with the fighting in this game is I feel like some of the sprites aren't exactly clear what type of attack they're going to do. You can also block high attacks here. So this is a new mechanic specific to this game. You don't really see this in Punch-Out. So in Punch-Out, you can block jabs, basically. And I don't know if this is a mechanic specific to Super Punch-Out. Super Punch-Out is the one Punch-Out game I've never played. And I know there's a way to block body shots. I don't know if there's a way to block high shots, but this might be a thing from that game. So this is a special mechanic that I believe is also analogous with a Super Punch-Out mechanic. And that's to do charged attacks. So you can hold either left button to do a high charged attack, or you can hold left trigger to do a high charged attack, or you can hold the right trigger to do a body shot charged attack. Now, unlike regular Punch-Out, so normally in regular Punch-Out for the NES and for the Wii, you have to dodge their attack, and then you can start rallying them with punches, which puts them into a dizzy state. In this game, you have to hit them 2 times in a row without getting hit in between in order to put them into a dizzy state. 2 times in a row with a charged attack. So if I charged attack once, I can't do it right now. If you charge attack once and then you get hit and then you charge attack a second time, that doesn't work. You have to hit them 2 times in a row without getting hit in between. Then they get put into a dizzy state, and then you can punch them a certain number of times until they become undizzy. So this is also a different thing where you have a super meter where you press both LB and RB, and this is basically the equivalent of your star punches. I believe this is new to this game because I think Super Punch-Out only has charged attacks.
2, 3.
In between rounds, you can mash the A button
6.
to regain health. We didn't lose any health here, but you can do that. This is a very minor complaint. I know I've already had quite a number of larger complaints, but this is a minor complaint. The fact that there's only one animation and one sound clip that plays when you're mashing the button to regain health gets very annoying in the future. It's fine for now. It gets a little bit annoying. And again, that's not too big of an issue. It's just a little pet peeve. And now that we know all the controls, cough, cough, I'll get into that later, we can actually do the fight. So much like Glass Joe in Punch-Out, this guy's actually really easy. You can basically go this whole fight without ever getting hit if you're paying attention. So you can, right now you can just mash the button. Basically you just, ooh. So this was also a new thing. Okay, so you can basically mash the button for the most part, and you'll almost always get the hit in. Something cool about this game. So in Punch-Out, I don't know if this is also from Super... Like I said, Super Punch-Out is the one game I haven't really played in the Punch-Out series. So in regular Punch-Out, usually, in order to stop you from just spamming the punch button over and over again, they have a stamina meter. And if you punch too many times, you see how he's blocking some of my attacks? In Punch-Out, whoops, that's my bad. In Punch-Out, if you get your attacks blocked too many times, you run out of stamina, and it stops you from being able to punch. So you have to select your attacks very carefully in normal Punch-Out. In this game, if you punch too many times, you may have noticed there they say counter.
3,
Also, you have to mash to get up, like Punch-Out. If you punch them too many times and they block too many times, they counter your attack. But if you know their counter style, you can usually just mash and know what they're going to do next. Except sometimes in future fights, what ends up happening is they do their counter attack and then they move on to the next attack in their pattern. So that's like the main way to discourage you from just spamming attacks, because much like Punch-Out, what they want you to do is to remember their attack pattern. They want you to dodge, whoops, I dodged all the wrong ways, and then use a charged attack, and then use a second charge attack to put them into a stun state so that you can start mashing them with attacks. That's basically the overall gameplay loop of this game. Whoops. I forgot all of his moves. That's fine. I can't believe I got knocked down 2 times in the tutorial fight. There we go, get down. So when you knock them down enough times, you do this final hit. It's just a cool thing. It's just a cool little super move. Now you may notice that the characters are not traditionally animated, they're puppet animated, which I know will put off a few people because I think some people find this sort of puppet animation to be uncanny. I thought it was weird when I first saw it. I kind of got used to it. I think it's okay because this is more emulating the original sprite animation of the older Punch-Out games versus new Punch-Out. Versus Punch-Out for the Wii, where they're 3D and they have full animations. And I think, normally, I think that if they were designing it more similar to classic Punch-Out, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. But because of the way they designed this game, I think that leads to clarity in some of their attacks. Because like I said, in that fight, you can mostly tell what direction their attacks were coming from. Also, the second fight in this game is Muhammad Ali Jr. You basically just get like I said, you just get a few sentences and then some anime screenshots. This doesn't tell you anything about Muhammad Ali Jr.'s relationship with fighting, his relationship with Baki, his relationship with his dad. It doesn't tell you about who Muhammad Ali is. It doesn't tell you about Muhammad Ali's relationship with all the other characters. And they also sort of like give you a brief, what would you call it? It's brief exposition about the characters implying that they've met each other before, but they don't tell you about any of that. So like I said, the story is it's extremely sparse, and I think it doesn't help if you don't already know who these characters are. So I think Ali Jr. is actually one of the other characters that has pretty easy to read attacks. Yeah, so his attack animations are pretty clear, but because of this sort of puppet animation, they have fewer frames of animation than I'd like. So some of the future characters, whoops, my bad. Some of the future characters is very difficult to see where they're coming from because their attacks, their poses and attack animations, that's my bad. I realized that at the last second, get extremely esoteric. Their attack animations get really bad. Whoops, my bad. So a cool thing about this game, you can actually cancel a lot of things into a dodge. You can cancel a lot of things into a dodge. So if you get caught and you're not ready to dodge, you still get a chance to dodge.
3, 4, 5, 6.
One thing about the dodging that does annoy me is the fact that you have to, when you hold it, you sort of hang in the air for a while. Whoop. So like I said, Ollie is also really easy to read in this game. You sort of hang in the air in a while, and I think that sort of influenced how they designed some of the later fights. Because some of the later fights, they expect you to hang in the air for a long time because they attack you multiple times in a row, which is a problem. So as you can see, when they get into their... When you knock them down a few times, they start throwing in more powerful attacks. Whoop. Nice. They start throwing in more powerful attacks multiple times in a row. There we go, second fight done. He's pretty easy. You know what's funny about Baki is I think they make the boxers pretty easy because because it seems like the author doesn't respect boxing as a fighting sport and he thinks that Chinese Kenpo is the coolest thing ever.
You win.
So Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Ali, or at least Muhammad Ali Jr. is really, really weak in this series. So this is where some of the problems start to arise. This fight specifically is where a couple of problems start to arise. Number one, oh, they don't even give you any real exposition for this fight. Isn't that amazing? Fight. So number one, he does this attack. Okay. Okay. Odd. I couldn't dodge toward that punch. I can't dodge toward that punch. So you see, I'll try to dodge in the direction that he's coming from, and I'll try to dodge away from where he's coming from. And for some reason, neither of those work. Well, I could try... Oh, spooky. I could try ducking that attack, maybe. Maybe that'll work. Whoops, that's my bad. That wasn't that attack.
1, 2, 3.
So maybe I can try ducking this punch. Oh, weird, that doesn't work. Let's try blocking. Oh, that doesn't work either, because the blocking only blocks high attacks. Not that. So, this is... The reason this fight is a problem is because... Remember, I told you they gave me a tutorial, and I said it was a little bad. That's because they don't teach you a major mechanic. There's one mechanic in this game that they don't teach you, and I just want to quickly go to the menu. Let's go into the options and let's go to controls. These are all the controls. You have two charge buttons, you have a block high button, you have dodge, you have duck, and you have jab, and you have body shot. Those are all the controls. Those are all the button controls in this game. Now, here's the thing, is that this extremely important mechanic that's mandatory for you to learn in this fight if you don't want to get hit by that attack, is that you can also block body shots, specifically jabs. And they don't teach you this during the tutorial. What it is if you're holding no buttons, then it blocks body shots like this. You have to be holding no buttons at all. And they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that through controls, because obviously it's not a control thing. They don't tell you that through the tutorial. They never teach you that. They just expect you to somehow figure it out. Whoops, my bad. They just expect you to somehow learn that. And I believe this mechanic is actually from Super Punch-Out. Like, I recall seeing someone play Super Punch-Out. My bad. And I recall that being a mechanic lifted directly from that game. The problem is, you would only figure that out if you were already a Super Punch-Out player. There's no way for you to learn it in this game. So that's the number one problem with this fight, Number 2, whoops, is also in relation to that punch attack, is that it's not clear what type of attack that is. Because like I said, when I started this fight for the first time, like I said,
Fight.
it makes it seem like you want to maybe dodge away from it, or you want to dodge toward it. Because it looks like it's an attack coming from the side, right? There's no way for you to know that's supposed to be a jab type attack, even if you knew that's how you're supposed to block that. So this is where the problems with the animation of certain types of attacks begins. Because now it's starting to become unclear where certain attacks are coming from. And you just have to get hit by, it maybe 2 or 3 times before you figure it out. These ones are pretty easy. But like, this is one of those attacks where it's unclear for a while. So I'm gonna move him into his phase 2. Okay. While we're here, this is a problem I have with the game. Whoops. This is a minor gripe I have with the visuals of this game, is that there's a lot of flashing and screen stuttering. Okay, so this is another one of those attacks where it's unclear what direction that's coming from. Oh yeah, this is another annoying thing about the game, is when you get to low health, it zooms the camera in on you. So like, you can't see where some of the attacks are coming from, because a lot of the attacks require the characters to move in different directions. And oftentimes when you're at really low health, they move mostly off screen. So there's no way for you to know what direction they're actually coming from until you've... my bad. Oh God. Until you've basically memorized their entire moveset. Rude. Like I want to show you here. These super attacks have a lot of flashing effects and screen stutters. Now, we've only gotten to our level 1 super. There are actually 3 levels of super attacks, and they get progressively more and more flashy each time. So right at the top of the bat, oh, this is fun. So this is the imaginary bone technique. So this is where he imagines he has more bones, and it makes his attacks faster and more powerful. And in the anime, he actually explodes one of his arms because he punches too hard. That's one of the best parts about Baki, is it pretends to be grounded, but it has these absurd things. Now when he's, oh God, so like I said, there's a lot of flashing lights in this game. And when you get further in and you get more super moves, it causes more and more flashing to happen on the screen rapidly. So I probably should have said this earlier. A little bit of photosensitivity warning. I'll probably put a warning up at the beginning of this video. There's photosensitivity warning. There's no way to turn that off. There's no way to lower it. As I said, the options menu is incredibly sparse. It's awful. When I was playing it before, after about 1 or 2 hours, my eyes were starting to hurt just from the flashing alone. Like, I don't usually have that problem, but the flashing in this game is so obnoxious. And this also weirdly... this weirdly goes in hand with another criticism that I have about the fighting in this game. So in Punch-Out for the Nintendo Wii, so in previous Punch-Out games, this wasn't as much of an issue. Or I guess it was kind of an issue, but it wasn't that big a deal. But what I realized playing the Wii version of Punch-Out is there's this cool design thing they do where they make characters flash certain colors to tell you whether an attack is coming or whether they're vulnerable and you can get a star punch. It's really cool. It's a good way to convey information in very quick bursts. They don't really have that thing here, which I believe is something that would help with their vague animations that don't really help you. So we just got a new alt level. It's something that would help with their vague animations later on that don't really help you or tell you what direction they're coming from. But they can't really do that in this game because characters are constantly flashing all sorts of colors once you get them into their final form. It's a bit much. There are some cool things they do with it that tell you when attacks are coming, but for the most part, it's weirdly inconsistent what colors they flash, when they flash, whether or not the flashing is important, if it's like an alt mode or something, or a super attack. I believe this fight is actually where we get to start to see some really annoying attack animations. This is Mr. Hanayama. I believe he's a gang leader? I forget. I think he's part of the Yakuza.
Ready.
So this guy actually has some really bad attack animations. So for example, that first attack, I believe the first attack is actually a middle punch, but it looks like it's supposed to come from the side. Nope, okay. I think that was a dodge toward him moment. There are just a lot of attacks that look really similar.
3, 4.
So you need to go through a lot of rounds just getting pummeled before you figure out what their attacks are supposed to be. That one's a relatively easy one. And we also get our first taste at another problem that I have with the fight design of this game. Whoops. Another problem I have with the fight design in this game. Let's get into his next. There we go. A lot of characters in this game do combo attacks. And it starts here and it gets worse and worse as we progress through the game. You see that one attack was one punch followed by another punch with very little animation in between. You're gonna be seeing a lot more of that. So normally in Punch-Out for the most part, normally in Punch-Out for the most part, characters only do 1 or 2 attacks and they try to make it extremely obvious when they're trying to do a combo attack. So that was a dodge towards attack. But there's really no way to know that until you get hit by it. My bad. Also, they start doing a lot of damage, which isn't necessarily that big of a problem.
You lose.
But it means that you're gonna have to be restarting fights a lot of the time. Nice. Something I will commend them on. So this charge mechanic, I believe, is mostly lifted from, whoops, my bad. Is sort of semi-lifted from Super Punch-Out. I don't know if it's exactly this. So that combo attack is actually something that you have to do your hold dodge for. Like you have to stay out there for a really long time. But yeah, something I will commend them for, this charged attack is something they took from Super Punch-Out. And initially when I was playing through this game, I want to pause for a second so I can talk. Initially when I was playing through this game, I was having a lot of trouble with some of the earlier fights because I didn't really understand the combat system. Because I was going into it with the view of a person that's played Punch-Out for the NES and Punch-Out for the Wii. And Punch-Out Arcade, but I didn't really like that one. Where the main idea of the game is you want to dodge their attacks and then punch and get them into a punch rally. But this game, since it's based on Super Punch-Out, you want to charge your attacks to get them into a stun state where you can then do a punch rally. I think Super Punch-Out also has the usual Punch-Out dodge and then counter punch thing. But in this game, when you dodge and then start punching them, you don't get the stun frame, so you don't get as many punches off. So what they expect you to do in this game is to be able to get 2 charged attacks off on them and get them into the stun state. However, as you get further and further into the game, when they're much like regular Punch Out, you can't just spam punches all the time because they start to get ready for attacks and they start blocking them. But in this game, they also block charged attacks if they're ready for them. So what they expect you to do is to learn the attack pattern of the opponent, and while you can beat them by slowly whittling them down through using normal punches and eventually supers, which I'll get more into in a second, what they actually want you to do is to, once you learn the patterns, you have to use this charged attack system to figure out the best way to hit them. And I didn't realize this when I was playing through the first half of this game originally, but I eventually got the hang of it going into the second half of the game. But you may think that there's no difference between the high charge and the low charge attacks, but there actually is a discernible difference. Characters in different attack animations are vulnerable. I forgot. I forgot he gives you such a long charge upon that. Characters stand in different places during their attack animations, and that determines whether or not you can hit them with a high punch or a low punch. And I think what they generally want you to do is to they want you to like dodge an attack and then get a charged attack in, which lets you get 1 bar of charge. And then what they want you to do is try and figure out when you want to interrupt certain attacks and which type of charge attack you use, high or low, because some attacks can only be interrupted with a high charge and some attacks can only be interrupted with low charge. It depends on where they're standing. And originally when I was playing through this, I was thinking, because you couldn't really interrupt their attacks with regular punches, and I've tried a lot. You can't really interrupt their attacks with regular punches. You can hit them, but they'll still continue with their attack. I thought that going into it, I thought that a problem with this game was going to be that there wasn't much room for player expression because you couldn't interrupt different kinds of attacks at different times. But now I understand that the main mechanic behind player expression is being able to discern what attacks you can use your charged attack on to interrupt them and which one to use them with. And I actually think that's really cool. So I highly commend them on this charged attack mechanic. Now time to die. I'm like getting distracted because I am also talking. Oh, that's a dodge toward. Oh, goodbye. So, photosensitivity warning. This is my level 2 super. It does, oh, that's actually not too bad. It's actually mostly I forgot how long the charge was. I forgot again.
3, 4.
I think you can actually interrupt that attack because it takes so long. I also think you can interrupt. My bad. I just realized I dodged the wrong way and that made me lose the fight. I believe with Hanayama, most of his attacks can be interrupted with the body charge.
Fight.
So if I get 1 charge off and then wait, that's my bad. If I get 1 charge off and then I charge another attack, yeah, most of his attacks, because he usually stays on the ground. And you'll see later, you may have seen with the last fight, our last fighter jumped in the air a lot. Our last fighter jumped in the air a lot. You'll be seeing a lot more of that. This game gets absurd. So that's part of the problem with their vague attack animations, is there are a lot of jumping and teleporting characters. So you're gonna see a lot of characters that fight like Jackie Chun and what was his name? Hong Kwor Lao from Super Punch Out, which are characters that they do a lot of jumping in the air and teleporting around, and that leads to extremely difficult to predict. Oh, that's bull. Okay, so that's another problem with that holding thing, is that some of their attacks last a lot of frames. Like their hurt box lasts a really long time, and sometimes your dodge just doesn't last long enough and you end up falling into it, even though for the most part you dodged it perfect. I didn't mean to restart there, actually. For the most part you dodged it perfectly, but it wasn't clear when the animation was intended to end. So you see, I'm interrupting his body shots now. Because I understand how he fights, and that's, charge attacks are really important for... Whoops. God damn it. Oh, that's my bad. Goodbye.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. See ya.
1, 2, 3.
What was he talking about?
5, 6.
Oh yeah, the dodge. So yeah, sometimes you just end up falling into their attack at the very end of it. There we go. So that attack lasts long enough to get 2 charge shots in to basically teach you that you can interrupt it. So you can completely destroy this guy if you realize how to interrupt him and when. I believe that attack you can actually interrupt it with both kinds of charge attacks. So that's really cool. It's really difficult the first time around because, like I said, some of his attacks are really, really unclear where he's coming from. There we go. But once you know it, that's why I think that's why I started to think this game is actually really, really good, because of the way they do charged attacks with interrupting their attacks. There we go. That wasn't too bad. I remember that being a really tough fight when I played it the first time because I didn't really understand the expected gameplay loop. And I do think that's one of the biggest problems with this game, is that it doesn't, I think it doesn't properly communicate the expected gameplay loop. So I think a lot of players will actually struggle picking this game up and understanding what they're expected to do, which will make people frustrated because they won't be able to... It'll seem like the fights are intended to be impossible when they're really not. The main problem is the attack animations. I believe this guy's actually really easy. But some of the future ones, they get way worse. And in fact, the very last fight of the game, you get almost no chances to actually get off your... You get no chances to do the punch volley. Like, you get no chances to dodge and then counter punch. So you're forced into learning how to do charged attacks to interrupt his attacks. And what ended up happening during that fight, I don't know how they expected you to fight him, but I ended up basically cheesing him by getting him into an infinite loop with interrupting with charge attacks, which kind of felt bad. But as far as I could tell, there wasn't really another good way to fight him. It didn't feel like there was any other good way to fight him, which I do think still makes the lack of being able to put them into a punch rally one of the problems, but it does exemplify why I think the charged attacks in this game are really cool. So this is a prisoner. This is a convict from the Escaped Convicts art of the anime. You wouldn't know that because they don't really tell you anything about that here. My bad. Ah, shoot. I thought that was something else. Actually, maybe I should show off some of their... Maybe I should let them show off some of their attacks. Because otherwise you won't see what I'm talking about with why I don't like some of their attack animations. That foot attack animation was pretty obvious, but some of them, like, how would you know that's about to be a straight down attack? So that confuses you, which is a status that they have that makes all your controls work the opposite.
1, 2.
I believe that was another attack that had an unclear animation. Let me try to let him do some more attacks. This one's pretty obvious that that's a high attack that you're supposed to block. This one, you have to act extremely fast in dodging that. That one's arguably pretty clear. That one's not really, because he moves to the side and then he does a straight up attack.
4.
Flashing light warning. It's actually not too bad on the level 2 one. Whoops, my bad. Nice. Oh shoot, that's my bad. But the worst one is, so first of all, the level 1 special has a couple flashing lights that are pretty bad. The level 3 special is awful.
Fight.
I forget if we get it after this fight or the next fight. How many hits is this? There we go. Like, this has a few annoying screen flashes. Also, during the early parts of the game where you don't really understand how they want you to fight with being able to interrupt attacks, during the early parts of the game, it feels like they mostly want you to sort of learn how to... They want you to spam your special attacks. But what ends up happening is, because that's like the best way you have to deal damage without actually stunning them. That's my bad. I could have hit him. If you're not stunning them, this is like your best way of dealing damage. The animation for that, I almost messed that up. There we go. The attack animation for that is really long. Like, not that long, but weirdly long to be spamming over and over again. That's my bad. Like, there's no way for you to know what direction these attacks are coming from. This is also a combo attack, by the way. He's hitting me like 3 or 4 times. And on your first go, there's literally no way for you to know what to expect from that. Also, he's flashing again. Yeah, like I said, there's no way for you to know what direction that attack's coming from. Because I believe he does 3 different... He attacks coming from 3 different directions. See ya. Weirdly, the level 2 super, I think, has a... the best animation length and the least amount of flashing versus the level 3 super, which is awful. It lasts so long. And there's so much rapid flash. Also, there's flashing on the KO screen. I didn't really think about that before, but now that we're talking about it, it's pretty bad. Okay, so this is where we get our 3rd ult. And I believe this guy is where we start to have some really bad attack animations. I don't know how far I'm gonna go through this. I'm actually progressing surprisingly quickly now that I know what to do. Yeah, so there's no way to know that was going to be a horizontal attack. Sure.
1, 2, 3.
He was about to do something untoward. So some of their silly attacks come from the anime. I'm just gonna keep on dizzying him until he's dead. There we go. Interrupt him with that attack. Get it done. I want to try to show you the level 3 special.
4.
Again, photosensitivity warning, because this one's pretty bad. There's no way for you to know what attack that's gonna be. My bad.
1,
You just have to figure it out.
4.
Okay. This one's pretty bad. Here's the flashing. Like I said. Yeah, like I said, there's no way for you to know. I've already forgotten what direction that's supposed to come from, and now I'm gonna have to experiment like 3 or 4 times by getting hit by that over and over again.
7, 8.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he puts a bomb in your hand. I guess I was just supposed to know that was going to be a vertical attack. Oh, goodbye. Yep, that's me dead.
Oh.
I think I want to get past this one because I want to show you the next one. Because it has a, I mean, at this point, I'm really just repeating myself over and over again. Because I keep finding new examples of ways that the animations are unclear. But again, like I said, it just keeps on getting worse and worse throughout the game. That's another lingering hitbox. Oh boy.
1, 2.
The attack animations just get worse and worse throughout the game. The next one's pretty bad because the character that you, I believe the character that you fight next, I might be incorrect on if it's this character or not. Actually teleports around the screen a lot. Like he teleports around the screen, and that's probably the end result of the attack animations being as unclear as they are. Because at that point, once they start teleporting, they don't even give you any indication of where they're going to come from next. Oh, my bad. Luckily, some of these big attacks give you a lot of extra time to dodge if you mess up. Some of the later fights aren't as forgiving.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh yeah, that is vertical. Whoops. So that's another lingering hitbox. Also, a lot of these big attacks, once you get them into their 3rd round, they start spamming them a lot more, and they do a lot of damage. That's my bad. Oh, god damn it. So I got hit by that lingering hitbox again.
Oh.
I wanna try to get past this guy, but I feel like at this point I've reiterated the same thing over and over again. And also at this point, I believe we've seen about half the fights, right? Or are we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? This is about half-ish of the fights. I forget if there were 12 or 13, but that's probably a good place to stop for the purposes of showing off gameplay. So here's another minor gripe I have with the game. I don't know if I like this menu, because of the art style, the way they're drawn on a black background, it can be difficult to actually know what boss you're fighting against. Especially because the font can also be difficult to read. The font can be difficult to read, it's difficult to tell what character you're facing, and whenever you exit the menu and come back, or whenever you're in the middle of a fight, and then you exit out to the menu, it always returns you to the furthest boss. So if I went to Muhammad Ali Jr. and I started this fight, I can skip this cutscene. Not that this cutscene tells you anything, but I can skip it. So if I enter this fight and then mash through this dialogue, it's also, you can't really mash through this. It feels like it forces you to get through a certain amount of text before you can skip to the next line.
Fight.
If I start this fight and then go back to the menu, it defaults you onto the latest fight. I feel like it would be better if it was some sort of list. If they just gave me a list of some kind that I could scroll through, and then go to these difficulty options. But that's another minor gripe I have. And I think the final problem I have with this is like it launched with a missing section. A new roster of opponents awaits, Death Row Convict Saga. I don't know if this is like an entire new set of 12 characters because there are a lot of unused Baki characters that they don't put in this game. Or if it has some reused characters, but they have new moves, similar to how Punch-Out Wii has regular and then title defense versions of all the bosses. But the fact that they just put this on the menu, I don't know, it annoys me. I understand the idea is supposed to be to sort of build hype for that so that you come back and play it again in the future. But to me, it reads more as this game is unfinished. And I'm wondering because it feels like with some of the lack of polish and missing features in this game, I'm wondering if it was a problem with the fact that it's a licensed IP and maybe they just didn't get enough time to fully develop the game. So they're having to put in additional content post-launch, or if we're just in year of our Lord 2025 and every single game has to have post-launch content. Donkey Kong just came out. Donkey Kong just came out and it already has DLC. So I don't know, this could just be a sign of the times. It still annoys me. But yeah, I think you basically have the gist of all of my problems with the game. I will say, I do really enjoy this game. I've really enjoyed playing it, but I keep on finding things that annoy me or are a detriment to the overall enjoyability of this game. Like the lack of any of the options, the problem with a lot of the attacks are really difficult to see, the unfinished tutorial that doesn't tell you one attack. It's just a lot of small things that have sort of piled up and given me a bad taste for certain parts of this game. Now, here's the thing. I've had a lot of complaints, but I did really enjoy this game. This game on launch costs about $30 USD. And I feel like I've seen a lot of people talking about how they don't think this game is worth the price. It's really hard to say. It's hard to say because on one hand, Punch-Out isn't that complex of a game, and I don't think it needs. I don't think a Punch-Out type game needs any more than just straight up boss fights. But it feels like there's so much missing in this game that wouldn't have been that difficult to add in. Like a little bit more of a story. Even if they're just using anime screenshots, they don't have to make new assets. They could just write more explanation to the story. And there are only 12 characters in this game. I believe in... Again, I'm gonna keep drawing comparisons to Punch-Out Wii, because I think that is probably the best Punch-Out to date. And also it fixes some problems with previous Punch-Out games that have caused people to have trouble getting into it. I believe Punch-Out Wii has I keep on forgetting this number. It's 4, 8, 13 bosses. And then it has variations on all those bosses in title bout or title defense. So it has 13 times 2 bosses, however you want to take that. And that was a fully 3D animated game. And it has a lot more polish, like all the characters are fully voice acted. The writing is really good. This game has barely any writing to begin with. Not that Punch-Out has extremely... Punch-Out's writing is extremely limited, but what it does have, it does extremely well. The thing is, comparing this game, which I've heard a lot of people say is undercooked and doesn't have enough content to be worth $30, Punch-Out for the Wii launched at $50 USD, which is a lot. That's like almost, I believe that was almost a full price game at that point in time. That was almost a full price game. And I do think at the time, it probably was worth it, honestly. In terms of Wii games, I do think that was worth the price. I got it pretty late. I ended up getting it on discount at $20. I definitely think that was worth more than $20. If anything, this is just my personal preference. I feel like I personally would value Punch-Out Wii at about $35 maybe. And this game, I feel like I would value at about $20 if I were to personally put a price on it. But those are meaningless numbers. I think that if you've watched this whole video and you've heard what I've had to say and you've seen the gameplay, I think you can judge for yourself whether or not you think $30 is worth the price of admission. But yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say about the game. I think it's a very fun game. I think it has a lot of problems. I think it is a little bit undercooked. I think it's missing a lot of quality of life options that should be there. It's missing a lot of accessibility. It's missing a lot of polish, but the main gameplay is enjoyable. That is my personal bias leaking through because I am a Punch-Out fan. So obviously I'm sure to enjoy a Punch-Out game, but it just has a lot about it that I've had problems with. And I've been thinking about it for a long time because I've been wanting a new Punch-Out game. And it's a shame that we got one that has so much about it that's working against itself. My name has been Tokimaru. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.